Henry VIII, the wild story of the English Reformation. What happens when a king wants a son so badly that he's willing to break up with the Pope? How does one man's marital drama spark centuries of religious upheaval, executions, and golden ages? And what on earth does Anne Boleyn's smile, a Spanish princess and a sword-wielding French executioner, have to do with the birth of the Church of England? Welcome to the wildest royal soap opera in history, the story of Henry VIII and the English Reformation. It's February 18, 1516 at Greenwich Palace. Trumpets blare, courtiers cheer, and Henry VIII beams as his wife Catherine of Aragon gives birth. But then the announcement comes. It's a girl. To Henry's smile fading faster than a candle in the wind. The baby is Mary, later known as Bloody Mary, but at this moment, she's just a royal disappointment in Henry's eyes. Why? Because in Tudor England, daughters were basically seen as practice heirs. Kings wanted sons, strong, sword-wielding, jousting heirs who could keep the fragile Tudor dynasty from collapsing like a badly baked meat pie. Catherine tries again, and again, and again. 4 pregnancies, 1 surviving daughter, and Henry's patience thinner than parchment. By the mid-1520s, Catherine is done with childbearing. Henry, however, is not done with scheming. The year is 1525, and King Henry VIII, already frustrated by Catherine of Aragon's failure to produce a surviving son, lets his royal gaze wander across the glittering court of England, and then he sees her. Anne Boleyn. Not just another lady-in-waiting. Oh no. Anne is sharp-tongued, fashionable, and radiates a charm that makes the courtiers whisper and the poets swoon. She's been educated in France, she knows how to flirt without promising too much, and she has that dangerous combination of wit and beauty that makes kings forget their kingdoms. Henry is smitten. He begins writing her letters dripping with passion, letters so steamy they could fog up the stained glass windows of Westminster Abbey. In them, he calls her his mistress and friend, pledges eternal devotion, and practically begs her to be his queen. Shakespeare himself would have blushed at the king's prose. By 1527, Henry has made up his mind. Catherine must go. Divorce time. But here's the problem. This is 16th century Europe, and divorce is about as scandalous as serving wine in a chipped teacup. Marriage is sacred, indissoluble, and firmly under the control of the Pope in Rome. Enter Pope Clement VII, the only man who can grant Henry freedom. But Clement is no pushover. He's caught between powerful rulers, political alliances, and the ever-watchful eyes of Catherine's nephew, Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. Granting Henry a divorce would mean angering one of the most powerful men in Europe. Henry, however, is not the type to take no for an answer. He calls upon his trusted fixer, Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, England's most influential churchman and master diplomat. Henry sends Wolsey to Rome with the royal equivalent of, "Hey Pope, can you break us up?" Wolsey, armed with charm, theological arguments, and the king's desperation, tries to persuade Clement. He argues that Henry's marriage to Catherine was invalid from the start because she had been married to Henry's brother, Arthur. Surely, he insists, this union is cursed by God. But Clement hesitates. The Pope is trapped between Henry's demands and Charles V's threats. Wolsey's mission begins to falter, and Henry's frustration grows. The king is convinced that Anne Boleyn is the answer to all his dynastic problems, but the Pope's refusal looms like a storm cloud over his plans. And so the stage is set. Henry, Anne, Wolsey, and Clement locked in a high-stakes game of love, power, and religion. Henry's obsession with Anne Boleyn is no mere courtly fling. It is the spark that will ignite the flames of the English Reformation. Henry's excuse for divorce is creative. Catherine, he argues, was married to his older brother Arthur before Arthur inconveniently died in 1502. Therefore, Henry claims their marriage is cursed by God. See, that's why we don't have sons. It's a flimsy argument, but Henry insists it's divine law. The Pope, however, is not convinced. And why? Because Catherine's nephew is none other than Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, the most powerful man in Europe. Charles basically tells the Pope, "If you let my aunt get divorced, I'll make your life miserable." The Pope folds like a cheap deck chair. No divorce for Henry. Meanwhile, across Europe, Martin Luther is stirring up trouble. He's nailing theses to church doors, calling out corruption, and inspiring a Protestant movement that's spreading faster than gossip at court. Henry notices. If the Pope won't play ball, why not cut him out entirely? And so Henry hatches his masterstroke. Step 1, break with Rome. Step 2, create the Church of England. Step 3, crown himself supreme head of the church. Step 4, grant himself the divorce. Step 5, marry Anne Boleyn and hopefully get those long-awaited sons. It's audacious, scandalous, and revolutionary. In one move, Henry transforms England's religious landscape forever. What started as a marital spat becomes the English Reformation, a seismic shift that shakes Europe, weakens papal authority, and sets England on a Protestant path. Picture the scene. It's the early 1530s. The air in Westminster is thick with incense, whispers, and the faint smell of roast venison. King Henry VIII storms into Parliament like a bull in a velvet doublet. His face is flushed, his temper hotter than a blacksmith's forge, and his patience with the Pope has officially run out. For years, Henry has begged, pleaded, and schemed to get rid of Catherine of Aragon. But Pope Clement VII, under pressure from Catherine's powerful nephew Charles V, has stubbornly refused to grant the divorce. Henry is furious. He wants a son. He wants Anne Boleyn, and he wants freedom from Rome's meddling. So what does Henry do? He slams his fist on the oak table, sending goblets rattling and courtiers jumping out of their silk stockings. With a voice that could shake the rafters, he bellows, "If the Pope won't let me divorce, I'll just be my own Pope." Gasps echo through the chamber. The bishops clutch their rosaries. The nobles exchange nervous glances. But Henry is unstoppable. He sets in motion a series of acts of Parliament, 1532 to 1534, that will forever change England's destiny. 1532, the submission of the clergy. Henry forces the English clergy to acknowledge him, not the Pope, as their ultimate authority. Rome's grip begins to loosen. 1533, the act in restraint of appeals. No more running to Rome for legal or religious disputes. England is now its own referee. 1534, the act of supremacy. The grand finale. Henry crowns himself with the most jaw-dropping title in history, Supreme Head on Earth of the Church of England. Translation: I'm the boss now. Rome can shove it. This wasn't just paperwork. It was a declaration of war against centuries of papal authority. Henry had effectively yanked England out of the Pope's orbit and planted it firmly under his own iron rule. The Pope could rage, Charles V could sulk, but Henry had won. From this moment, the King of England was not only master of the crown, but also master of the church. He could grant his own divorce, marry Anne Boleyn, and, most importantly, control the spiritual life of his entire kingdom. The courtiers bowed, the scribes scribbled, and Henry VIII stood taller than ever, basking in his new role as both monarch and religious overlord. The Reformation in England had officially begun, not with quiet sermons or scholarly debates, but with one man's thunderous declaration that he would no longer be Rome's puppet. Loving the story? Be generous. Hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Henry isn't just playing church politics. He's playing Monopoly with monasteries. He dissolves every Catholic monastery in England, strips them of their gold, jewels, and land, and stuffs the royal coffers like a Tudor Black Friday sale. The people ordered to convert to Protestantism. Those who refused? Well, let's just say Henry's executioner was kept very busy. Heads rolled faster than ale barrels at a London tavern. The year is 1533, and Henry VIII finally achieves what he has schemed, argued, and thundered about for years. He marries Anne Boleyn, the woman who had captivated him with her wit, charm, and promise of sons. The court is buzzing, the nobles are whispering, and Henry is strutting about like a peacock in cloth of gold. Soon after, Anne gives birth. The midwives announce the arrival of a healthy child. Henry rushes in, eyes gleaming with anticipation, ready to cradle his long-awaited heir. And then, plot twist, the baby is a girl, Elizabeth. Henry's face falls. He sighs, muttering under his breath, "Not again." For Henry, daughters are not the solution to his dynastic anxiety. He needs a son, a strong heir to secure the fragile Tudor dynasty. Elizabeth, though destined to become one of England's greatest monarchs, is at this moment nothing more than another disappointment to her father. Anne tries again, and again, but no sons arrive. Miscarriages and failed pregnancies darken the royal chambers. Henry's patience, already thin, evaporates like morning mist over the Thames. The king who once adored Anne now grows cold, distant, and suspicious. Enter the shifty skullduggery. Courtiers whisper, rivals plot, and enemies of Anne seize their chance. Rumors swirl of adultery, treason, and scandal. Anne is accused of betraying the king with multiple men, even her own brother. The charges are flimsy, the evidence laughable, but Henry is determined. He wants Anne gone, and in Tudor England, when the king wants someone gone, they go. In 1536, Anne is dragged to the scaffold at the Tower of London. Dressed in a simple gown, she faces the crowd with dignity, delivering a final speech that avoids blaming Henry but pleads for mercy from God. The executioner, imported from France for his skill with a sword, steps forward. The crowd holds its breath, the blade flashes. Chop! Anne's head falls, and the queen who had changed the course of English history is no more. Henry, now single again, dusts off his crown, shrugs off the scandal, and declares with chilling nonchalance, "Next." Anne's fall is not just the end of a marriage, it is a brutal reminder of Henry's ruthless pursuit of heirs and his willingness to sacrifice anyone, even queens, to secure his dynasty. Elizabeth, the daughter Anne left behind, will one day prove that Henry's sigh of disappointment was the greatest misjudgment of his reign. Enter Jane Seymour, Henry's third wife. Married in 1536, she finally gives Henry what he's been craving, a son. In 1537, Edward VI is born. Henry dances in joy, England rejoices, and Jane tragically dies shortly after childbirth. Edward grows up to continue Daddy's Protestant Reformation, but fate is cruel. In 1553, at just 15 years old, Edward dies, no heirs, no sons, just chaos. Now it's Mary's turn, the daughter of Catherine of Aragon. She's fiercely Catholic, fiercely Spanish, and fiercely determined to undo all of Henry's Protestant tinkering. Mary becomes queen in 1553 and declares, "Back to Rome, or off with your heads." She marries Philip II of Spain, son of Charles V, remember him? And England trembles under her fiery Catholic mission. Thousands are executed, earning her the nickname Bloody Mary. But in 1558, Mary dies childless. Catholicism dies with her reign. Enter Elizabeth, Anne Boleyn's daughter, the very reason Henry broke with Rome in the first place. She takes the throne in 1558 and says, "Enough of this back-and-forth nonsense." She reinstates the Act of Supremacy, but with a twist. She calls herself Supreme Governor instead of Supreme Head. Clever politics, less papal rage. Under Elizabeth, Protestantism is firmly rooted, and England flourishes in what becomes the Elizabethan Golden Age. Elizabeth dies in 1603, childless. The throne passes to the Stuarts of Scotland. Cue a century of drama, plots, wars, and religious tug-of-war. 1605, the Gunpowder Plot. Guy Fawkes and friends try to blow up Parliament to restore Catholicism. Spoiler, they fail. 1688, the Glorious Revolution. The last Catholic monarch, James II, is deposed, replaced by William III and Mary II, ruling together as Protestant monarchs. From then on, every British monarch has been Protestant, and every monarch has been head of the Church of England. Henry's gamble for a son ended up rewriting the entire religious map of England forever. So let's recap. Henry VIII wanted a son. He broke with Rome, dissolved monasteries, and chopped off heads. Anne Boleyn gave him Elizabeth, who became one of England's greatest queens. Edward died young, Mary tried to reverse everything, and Elizabeth restored Protestantism. The Stuarts took over, Catholics tried comebacks, but by 1688, Protestantism was locked in. All because one king wanted a divorce. Thanks for watching, like, share, and subscribe for more epic history adventures. Every follow helps build and grow this channel. See you in the next one.